This tomato bacon jam is one of the best appetizers that I've ever made, and it's so easy. It just requires a few ingredients and a few minutes, and it's ready to go. Welcome to the Salt and Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today we're gonna make a tomato and bacon jam, and it's, oh my gosh, so easy and so delicious. I'm gonna do it in the Ninja Foodie, and I'm using the 6.5 quart, but you could use any size Ninja Foodie or just a heavy bottom pot on the stove, or a frying pan even would work just fine. First thing we wanna do is get our bacon cooked. And the way that I'm gonna do that is I have 8 ounces of thick cut applewood smoked bacon. That is my preference. You do not have to use thick cut. You can use any kind of bacon you like, just use 8 ounces of it. And then instead of trying to struggle with a knife and get it all cut up because we want it into little bite-sized pieces, I just take the whole block of bacon while it's together, a nice sharp clean pair of kitchen shears, and go right over the pot and start snipping off pieces. All right, so once all the bacon is cut up and into the inner pot or your saucepan on the stove, you're gonna turn it on, sear saute. Now I'm gonna use the high, at least to start. I might back that down some. And if you're using a gas stove, you might want to use a medium heat. The idea is to render all of the fat and cook the bacon 100% before we add in the other ingredients. So this takes a few minutes. We're just gonna let it sit on the bottom of the pot until the pot heats up and starts to render that fat, and then we will start stirring it. So for now, there's nothing to do but go over the rest of the ingredients. All right, let me put this out of the way here. What I have is 20 ounces of cherry tomatoes, but I've also tested the recipe with 4 ripe, medium-sized tomatoes. So that will work just as well. You just want to chop them up. With the cherry tomatoes, I'm not even going to worry about chopping them up, which is why I decided to use them, because it just makes it a little bit easier. They're going to break down when they cook in the pot. I have 1 Vidalia onion, but you could use a red onion or a regular yellow onion or a white onion, whatever you want. I just prefer cooking with Vidalia onions. And I'm going to dice that up and add that in. We have a 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar, a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. I'm gonna use a teaspoon of salt, and then I'm gonna add some red pepper flakes. That is totally optional. You do not have to add those, but I think that it really balances the sweetness of the jam and just gives that a little bit of spice, not too much. I'm gonna add in probably a 1/2 teaspoon, but I've tried it with a 1/4 teaspoon, and it's very, very, very mild. So if you're afraid of spice, use a 1/4 teaspoon or omit it altogether and you'll be fine. All right, so we're starting to hear some sizzling, and now I just want to move the bacon around, kind of separate it because it's in little chunks how I cut it up. So just separate it and just keep on going. And like I said, you can decrease your temperature, so decrease the heat some. We don't want to burn anything. We want to just render all the fat and get the bacon nice and crispy. So while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and chop up my onion, and I'm going to dice it in about a 1/4 inch dice, because remember, we're going to be putting this on a cracker, or you might spread it on a toasted French bread or something. That would be so delicious. Or you're going to make it into a dip. So you want to have the jam in bite-sized pieces. So everything that's in there is going to be on the smaller side. And you can add the onion in right now. It's perfectly fine. It's not going to matter at all. So I'm going to go ahead and do that so I can clean off my cutting board. We've got some nice browning going on for sure. And so everything's looking really good, but we just leave it alone. Don't add any of your liquid. Don't add your tomatoes. Don't add anything until your bacon is fully cooked. That's going to give you the best end result. Otherwise, you're still going to have that fat on the bacon, and it's going to be a little rubbery. No, that's not really the right word. Fatty in your jam. So it just tastes a little. It's got like a funny texture to it. So just make sure you cook the bacon all the way to render all the fat, and you'll be good to go. All right, we're getting some good browning on the bacon. We still have a little ways to go. It's been about 5 minutes or so. So what I'm gonna do is turn the heat down because I'm seeing some of the pieces getting a little dark, especially the onions. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat down. We'll go down to medium and we'll just let it continue cooking. And as the bacon fat is rendering, make sure you're stirring occasionally. You don't have to stir constantly, but definitely stir occasionally so that nothing burns to the bottom. But everything's looking perfect. And I would say about maybe 5 more minutes and we will be ready to add in the rest of the ingredients. All right, well that looks really, really good. Now there are going to be a few pieces that don't completely render. Do not let that bother you at all. It's fine. Most important is that, you render most of it and you don't burn your onions or your bacon. All right, now we're gonna add in the rest of the ingredients. So in goes 1/2 cup of the brown sugar, 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar, and this is just the plain vinegar, not the glaze. The glaze is thicker. You could use the glaze if you wanted. You would probably just want to add a couple of tablespoons and then adjust to your taste. Then I'm going to add in the 20 ounces of cherry tomatoes. I'm just going to add those right in. And I'll add the salt and the red pepper flakes in just a minute. First, I want to go ahead and get this all mixed in. Now, you could put this under pressure. I have done that before, and it works fine. But honestly, I thought it took just as long. Okay, so I'm just going to use the sear sauté the whole time. You could also put this under slow cook. So if this is something you wanted to start and then kind of walk away from and you didn't need it for several hours, then go ahead and put it on the high slow cook function with the pressure lid on vented. You definitely want it vented because the idea is to reduce all of this. And if it's not vented, you're going to keep all of the liquid in the pot and you're not going to get anywhere. So I'm just going to use my mix and chop to sort of break up these tomatoes if they will. They should. I should be able to get through them, but I'm not getting through them too well. Well, we'll just heat them up some more, that's all. Just let them cook. Then I'll use the little mix and chop. They're just slipping, so it happens. I'm determined. I'm like, why aren't they breaking up? Just go right in the center of them and push down. They will break up, but I'm just going to let them cook for a few minutes. It should happen pretty quick. Now, this is the time when you actually could put on your pressure lid and sear sauté for about 5 minutes, but I'm just going to keep an eye on it. All right, let's try this again. See if I can get these to chop up with this mix and chop. Yep, there they go. They're starting to soften a little bit. Well, some of them are anyway. And if they keep running away from me. There we go. Just don't look in there and start chopping. There we go. Oh, that was fun. All right. So anyway, you want them to release all of their juice and their seeds and all that stuff. We want to do that now because I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat up so that we can get this reduced quicker. So I'm going to just keep going around and breaking these tomatoes up. It was, I thought this was going to be a little bit easier to use the cherry tomatoes, but you know what? I'm starting to think that maybe chopping the tomatoes was easier. It's looking good now, though. So I think if you want to use cherry tomatoes, pressure cook for like 2 minutes or so and let them really get soft and start to break down under the pressure cook time. If you want to use diced tomatoes, just do it just like I'm doing, but just dice them up into like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch dice before you add them to the pot. but all of these will break open. I'm just trying to speed the process up here. It's looking good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add in the salt, which is 1 teaspoon. Now, of course, you can adjust that to your liking. You could even use pepper if you wanted, in addition to the salt, that's fine. Or if you wanna wait and taste it at the end, you can do that and add the salt at the end. There's no problems with that either. The bacon is salty, but it still, to me, needed a little bit of the salt. Then I'm just gonna put in 1/2 teaspoon of these red pepper flakes. And that's it. That's all the ingredients we need. Now you see it's very soupy. That's fine. That's the way it should look. And now we're going to reduce it. All right, we are starting to thicken up here, but we still have a ways to go. So I'm going to just make sure all these tomatoes are chopped up, which it looks like they are, or they're just about to kind of break down a little bit. I'm gonna go through this one more time with my mix and chop, just to make sure they're broken into little pieces. It smells amazing. So it's been about 5 minutes. I would anticipate that we need to go another 5 minutes or so. So I'm just gonna let it keep reducing. I'm not even hardly stirring at this point. I kept the heat on medium because it is doing a really nice job of boiling. And if you wanted to, you could up the heat, but if you up the heat, stir more frequently. What we're looking for is when we go across the bottom, you can see now we get a little bit of separation, but it goes back together very, very quickly. So as it reduces more and becomes more jammy, it will stay separated longer and longer. So I'll be able to show you exactly the texture of when you want to turn off your heat and let it cool a little bit. All right, almost. We are almost there, but not quite. So if you stopped it now, the only thing that's going to happen, it still will set up to be thicker once it cools, but just not as thick as I want to get it. Now, this makes about 1.5 to 2 cups of bacon tomato jam. You can double the recipe just by doubling all the ingredients and no problems. You can even triple it. Absolutely no problems. You're just gonna have to reduce longer because obviously there's more liquid to reduce. All right, so now when I go through the mixture, it stays apart even longer. But we're not quite there. It is taking about 3 to 5 seconds to come back together again, and I want it to just be a little bit longer than that. So I'm just gonna keep reducing for just another few minutes. All right, I think that's it. It's probably been about, I would say 15 minutes. And now it's taking at least 5 seconds to come back together, sometimes a little bit longer. It looks and smells amazing. We are done. Go ahead and turn that off. Now, you can serve this warm. You could serve it as a warm dip with just some crackers. You could let it cool down to room temperature. You do need to refrigerate it, and after you refrigerate it, the fat's gonna solidify. So before you serve it, you wanna let it come to room temperature or just heat it up in the microwave or even in the inner pot here, just for a little bit. So since this is going to be pretty runny because it needs some time to set up, I have some that I already made so I can show you how thick it gets. It's really nice and thick. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And then there's a couple things that you could do with it. So you can serve it just like this and just put it on crackers. Just like that. You could toast some bread and, a French bread, the baguette. Use it on that, be perfectly fine. You could put some cream cheese on your crackers and then top it with this. That's absolutely delicious. You can make a hot cream cheese dip with it. Really, really yummy. You could make a cheese ball with it. So you could do a cold dip. So you could mix it in with the cream cheese, get it into whatever shape you want. It doesn't have to be a ball. And then chill it and put it out to serve. That would be delicious too. So there's plenty of things that you can do with this. I'm gonna taste it just by itself, and then I'm gonna taste this little bit of dip that I have. It's so good. The bacon flavor is fantastic. I mean, like it is perfect. But then you've got that hint of the tomato. You've got a little tiny bit of heat from the red pepper flakes. And you can't really taste the onion, but you know, it's there. But oh my gosh, it is so good. A little bit of sweet from the brown sugar. It is absolutely delicious. Now let me try this. I just mixed this up. I've never even tried this before. So I thought, how will it be if it's a hot dip? Now I will say it's not really that attractive looking, you know. So I'm not sure if I would serve it that way or not, but let's just see how it tastes. Because I might eat it that way, but not serve it that way. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Serve it that way. It's delicious. Oh my gosh, that is so good. Cream cheese is slightly warm. The dip is slightly warm. Not hot, just slightly warm. Oh. That's the best. That is so good. All right, there you go. That's how you make tomato, bacon, and onion jam. That can't taste the onions too much, but they're there. Enjoy.